Now available on Amazon. The newest book from author J.N. Jameson, The Black Crescent. The Black Crescent is a sea adventure and fantasy time travel novel. Trapped behind enemy lines on an uncharted island, 2 days ago, rescue skipper Jim McGraw and his crew left on a distress call to save a boat on the high seas. Now, they vanished without a trace. Pulled through a mysterious black wall, they landed on a tropical island overrun by Viking warriors. How can these 21st century rescuers help the desperate islanders take back their nation? Find out when you read The Black Crescent from author J.N. Jameson. Available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon. Author J.N. Jameson served in the United States Coast Guard for over 20 years as a navigator, search and rescue skipper, and master training specialist. He brings his knowledge and experience in true life rescues at sea into this must-read book, The Black Crescent. Order your copy right now on Amazon.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Hope everyone had a wonderful New Year, but we don't have time to celebrate the New Year because
yes, Happy New Year.
All kinds of news is breaking and going on everywhere, so Happy New Year. Glad you had a good New Year. We got to move on to important things other than wishing everybody Happy New Year because
let's hope this year is better than last.
Well, okay. I'm a little concerned here. Kathy and I were talking before the show with Joe Rogan and Trump, okay? And Joe Rogan has told everyone to leave Twitter and go to Getter.
Yeah.
And I saw on Twitter earlier this morning 150,000 people have gone to Getter. But the number's bigger than that because I'm on Getter, Real Brian Craig on Getter.
And I am too, KVO-FLA.
Yeah, I have not been on Getter, and I was October. I posted something in October, but I really haven't been regularly active on Getter since it almost first began. So I went back and signed on Getter today just because Joe Rogan's talking about it. So that 150,000 number is, I think, probably in the millions because I think a lot of people in the last couple of days have done what I've done, get back on Getter when you left it because Getter was not the big savior. And what has happened, there's a problem coming up, and with Joe Rogan, and it involves President Trump, which I'll get to in a minute. But what happened first, you had Parler, which I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talk about Parler in a while. Parler and Getter were going to be the conservative alternatives, and what had happened was all the people that had been deplatformed, from different things like Laura Loomer and others were going to Parler and Getter because they've been deplatformed everywhere. And it seemed to me to be not the best place to go for the MAGA people because President Trump has Truth Social coming up. And we are really getting close to him making a major announcement about Truth Social. It's expected very soon. And my concern is that Joe Rogan, who has more influence than Rush Limbaugh ever had, that he is going to be driving Getter and sidelining President Trump's Truth Social. And there is no way President Trump is going to get on Getter when he has his own social media platform out there. And I'm really afraid that Joe Rogan is going to lead a movement that could cause Truth Social to, and I hate to use this word with President Trump, but fail.
Well, I think it's possible that Getter is working with Joe Rogan, and maybe they made some kind of a deal with him.
I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
But there's no reason people can't be on both or as many platforms as you want to be on. You could be on multiple platforms. You don't have to just be loyal to one. Parler never worked for me because I didn't like the interface. It was a little confusing. Getter is very user-friendly, and it's very similar to Twitter. It's very similar to Twitter. Parler did not have all the features, and I really didn't like Parler. It had a lot of trouble just going out of the gate. You know what I mean? But I think this Joe Rogan going to Getter is a game changer. Like you said, and we had talked about this yesterday. I agree with you. He has more influence than Rush Limbaugh because in the sense that he's younger and he's reaching people that aren't just, he's reaching people that are into politics and he's reaching people that are not into politics. He's reaching the left and the right.
Well, Joe
Rush
Rogan,
Limbaugh had a select audience that was very loyal to him, but they were probably 90% politically minded conservatives.
Yes.
Joe Rogan, to me, is reaching maybe not a larger audience, but he's reaching more different demographics.
It's a larger audience.
Yeah, different demographics.
The age, though, when Rush became big, syndicated, he was about Joe Rogan's age.
Yeah,
so the age is, but
I think he's going to really
Joe Rogan
start to take off.
Joe Rogan reaches more people each week than Rush Limbaugh did. Okay, so that's the and like you said, Kathy, Joe Rogan is reaching not just conservatives. He's
not just political.
He's reaching
people.
Celebrities and others and things like this. So it's also different. But his
show is becoming the show of record.
It is, and it
really is becoming that.
And especially, there's been a lot of developments in the last few days on that.
He's driving the news cycle, and when you're driving the national news cycle, that's when that's when and he's driving the news cycle on multiple platforms and on multiple networks. And when you drive the news cycle, that's when you're, Tucker, you're really important.
Here's the problem. Okay. I'm not interested in people driving news cycles. I'm interested in the success of Donald Trump, and what I see Joe Rogan doing, and I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not saying is doing this on purpose. I'm not saying he's conspiring against President Trump. I'm not saying that at all. He right now is in a big transformative phase in his career and in his life. You got a guy who's he's like a mediocre C-level actor. Fear Factor was pretty cool,
and he's not like highly intelligent.
No, he's not. I did like Fear Factor. It's very good. I'm not downing him too much, but now think about it. This guy who was hosting Fear Factor is now more influential than Rush Limbaugh or even Howard Stern. And he's reaching more people than either. And there's a certain level of ego that's coming with that, and he's not going to worry about Trump. I'm concerned about Trump. I think everyone should be on every platform that you can be on, that because you want to have contact with as many people as you can. But for President Trump to launch his social media network, with Truth Social, we need that to be successful because that. I don't know if it's possible for anything to become bigger than Twitter and Facebook quite yet, but it's possible with Trump. And
I think with Joe Rogan moving to Getter, that's huge.
If Joe Rogan is pushing Getter, it is possible that Getter and Truth Social could be like Facebook and Instagram or Twitter and Facebook. You know what I mean? There's room for more than one thing, but the problem is this. Okay, here's the problem. What all these other new social networks have become, Getter and Parler, they become like places just for conservatives, right? Just for conservatives. Trump wants to have something that's open to everyone. I think there's room for both, but I don't know if the reason Facebook and Twitter work and Instagram and Facebook work is because Facebook and Instagram are for different things, but also for different demographics of people. And what I'm worried about is Joe Rogan pushing Getter and President Trump with Truth Social. Is the MAGA movement, is that enough to have two successful, influential social media platforms? I don't know.
Well, I don't know why he didn't join Getter. I know he was forming his own thing, but he said that he and the Jason guy who started Getter,
Jason Miller,
didn't meet eye to eye. I don't know. I'm thinking it's more of a financial issue what they didn't meet eye to eye on because the interface is very similar to Twitter. So I would think that Trump would be totally fine with that. But I think I'm concerned about that too because if Joe Rogan has, I'm not saying I like Joe Rogan better than Rush Limbaugh. I don't like Joe Rogan's show. I think he curses way too much. He says the F word constantly, and I really don't think he has any class at all. So I don't really like Joe Rogan. I'm just saying that he has a lot of influence right now, and he's driving news, and he is him moving to Getter is huge.
Yeah,
but and he's interviewing people that are being talked about in the news, which is really when you start interviewing really, really important people. And I think he's going to start getting even more and more. He really does do a lot more political than he used to. And I think he's realizing that for him to really get to those upper levels of influence, he needs to interview important people, not just like today, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga.
No, today.
He's got to interview really important people.
Today, a member of Congress, a Republican, entered into the Congressional Record a transcript of Joe Rogan's big interview that everyone's talking about this week.
Yeah.
So Joe Rogan is definitely Joe Rogan. He's not there yet because I think Tucker Carlson holds the crown as the show of record. But he's getting very close. If you were to put together the shows of record, it would be 1, Tucker Carlson, and 2, I think, Joe Rogan. But Tucker Carlson's way ahead with the so far as driving things. But I know that most people out there will say I can be on Getter and I can be on Truth Social. But the thing is, we need anything that Trump does to be number one without a doubt. We can't let what Donald Trump is doing be the second banana to something else that, this is a thing too, I'm thinking, if President Trump would have gone to Getter, and I'm not so sure it was a financial thing with Jason Miller. I think when Parler was taken out of the app stores and everything and they lost their servers, you guys all remember that. I think whatever President Trump is doing, and we saw also how Frank's speech with Mike Lindell was attacked. And what they do by attacking, they don't have like hackers infiltrate the computers. They have bots overwhelm the system so that it crashes. Okay. So that, in all these, True Social will deal with that. I think Trump probably technically wanted to have something that was completely independent from any possibility of somebody coming in like they did with Parler. That's probably what happened with Getter. But if President Trump would have gone with Jason Miller to Getter, do you think Joe Rogan would be sending everybody there today? Because I really don't think that Joe Rogan's a big fan of President Trump on a lot of things.
Well, like you said, he's a young guy and presidents come and go. And
that's how they think.
So I don't think he's going to attach himself to anybody in particular because in politics, it's, senators and congressmen stay forever, but presidents come and go. And who knows? I think personally he likes Trump, but you know how these things go. They both have big egos, and somebody could say one thing, and boom, that's it, it's over, and then he'll start attacking him. Trump has to tread very lightly here, and he has to respect and understand Joe Rogan's position in the world and what's happening to it. Because I worry that if he says something insulting, he tends to do this about Joe Rogan, then that's it. He's going to turn on him, and that could be a problem, especially for younger people. It's a really good time right now for Republicans because people are so unhappy with Biden and his administration. He's really checked out. In fact, now you have Democrats. AOC's a spokesperson, somebody she worked with, was attacking him. You have hardcore Democrats that are attacking him, that he's checked out, he's awful, he's not doing anything. It's a good time for Republicans. So Trump has to be very careful and be a little savvy as far as what he says and what he does. He's really been laying kind of low, but I think once he announces he's running, it's going to obviously kick up again.
Now, here we are. We're on the countdown to Valentine's Day. And, of course, there are great, great items at MyPillow.com. And when you use our promo code KANE, K-A-N-E, at checkout, you get huge deals, huge discounts. And, Mike Lindell, Verizon has banned Mike Lindell from sending out text messages on regarding Frank's speech. And that's
incredible.
It is because,
they're totally silencing him everywhere.
I never thought I would see this with the phone companies, and we're seeing it amazing with the phone companies.
Wow.
Verizon. And, T-Mobile has done some restrictions on the Gateway Pundit. So now the phone companies are restricting conservatives. And when we talk about the cancel culture with Mike Lindell, I think we downplayed a little bit. It's worse than you realize because he's being shut out now of the phone company, which is insane. Now, I want to go through what I'm calling the Valentine's Day bundle here at MyPillow.com. So go to MyPillow.com, click the radio listener specials, and what I'm talking about right now. By the way, any special you see at MyPillow.com, you can take advantage of with our promo code KANE at checkout, K-A-N-E. But this is the Valentine's Day bundle. And this is a bundle I'm putting together. It's an unofficial bundle.
It's the Brian bundle.
The Brian bundle for Valentine's Day. The first, of course, it's a 3-item bundle, and this will make Valentine's perfect for your Valentine, whether they be male or female. It starts with the MyPillow bathrobe, which comes in many different colors for men and women. They have a lot of new colors, and they also have 2 styles of robes. They have a heavy robe and a light robe. With our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE, 30% off the MyPillow bathrobe. And of course, what do you need with a bathrobe? You need the MyPillow My Slippers. Now, the MyPillow My Slippers come in many different styles and colors for both men and women as well. And with our promo code at checkout, KANE, KANE, 40% off the MyPillow My Slippers. And finally, the final portion of the Valentine's MyPillow bundle, the MyPillow men's and women's sleepwear. Okay, and they have sleepwear, which is very, very nice, as well as loungewear for men and women. That's 30% off with our promo code at checkout, KANE, KANE. Stand with Mike Lindell. Go to mypillow.com, and of course, you're supporting us as well. Mm-hmm. Use our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE. All right, so this business with Joe Rogan is very, very important. You know, Joe Rogan has moved into a new area now, all right? It's not just that he has millions and millions of people listening to him every week. He's now become not just the show of record in general, he's becoming the show where people go who want to get the word out about their position or whatever it is. He's becoming a kingmaker.
Right, and that's right. And it's becoming a thing now soon, if not already, where people are going to be wondering, well, what does Joe Rogan think? What has Joe Rogan said? What has been, because he is saying things that people are really thinking about and contemplating and putting things out there. And I got to say this about the guy. Like I said, he's a good interviewer. He does let people talk, which is important, but I don't like the cursing. If he didn't curse so much, I'd probably like his show better. There's no need for that. But I will say this, the guy is pretty damn fearless in his shows. Yeah. He talks about things a lot of people are afraid to talk about. Mm-hmm. And he really is kind of just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to talk about whatever I want. And I do respect that.
Well, he's got a deal with Spotify, and he's got a relationship with the executives at Spotify that give him freedom that no one else has.
That's good.
And the difference is, there's a lot of people out there.
I'm sure he's making them a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people out there who talk about the things that he's talking about, but they don't have the listeners that he does. So he's got a platform reaching more people. Now, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, there is a lot more to talk about. Let us know in the comments what you think about Joe Rogan and the relationship between Gitter. Will it damage Truth Social? Let us know what you think about that. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We will be back right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Are you living the life you want to live? The life that you and your family deserve? You have the ability to change your life. You just need the right guidance. And that is what you will find in the book from author Sandy Money. You hold the key to change your life. Life is what we think it is. You can change your life by changing within. Sometimes we limit ourselves and cap our potential. Many talented people develop the belief that they are destined to remain in their current situation, but that is not the case. The secrets in this must-read book will help readers break through the patterns of negative beliefs, moving from inaction to action and overcoming your fears. What possibilities are ahead for you? Find out when you read You Hold the Golden Key to Change Your Life from author Sandy Money. Available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online booksellers, and other bookstores worldwide. You will not be able to put this book down. Order your copy right now. Are you ready to remove your body hair for good? If so, visit glazeskin.com. That's GLAZEE skin.com. They have exactly what you need. A device that's designed to remove unwanted hair in as little as 3 weeks. Finally, hair removal that's affordable and permanent. Now you can remove hair in the comfort of your own home with no razor burn and no ingrown hairs, with little or no pain, and all in just a few minutes. This is permanent laser hair removal, but no need to pay a doctor thousands thousands of dollars. Now you can do it all yourself. It just takes a few sessions and you will see lasting results. It also comes with a 90-day guarantee. Order yours right now online at glazeskin.com. GLAZEE skin.com. Many times we hear that crises are opportunities, but to understand this, it's necessary to change the focus of how we see the context. This way, we can notice the ways that allow us to undertake what we think of as the new and what we want to manifest in our universe. The book from author Christian Franchini, Creativity in Times of Pandemic, available on Amazon, provides readers with 11 keys to develop your creative potential. Keys that you can implement in your daily life and discover a new universe of possibilities that will propel you towards the singularity of being. Since we can understand creativity as a key to a new state of consciousness that connects us with infinite alternatives, this requires reformulating the old patterns of information and beliefs to enhance the creative process in all its dimensions. This must-read book is a great gift for anyone who wants to manifest a new beginning in their life. Order your copy right now on Amazon. Creativity in Times of Pandemic from author Christian Franchini.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks for tuning in. Our first show of the new year. Welcome, 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 welcome. All right, now, oh boy, right before the New Year's, AOC came here to Miami, and of course, this sparked all kinds of controversy all over the place because she was out on a sidewalk restaurant on South Beach, and I know where that is, by the way, where she was at, and she was maskless while she was not eating or drinking. She was maskless at a restaurant, texting, and Governor Ron DeSantis was asked about this today. Now, here in Florida, we don't have a mask requirement. We can go wherever you want. Mm-hmm. No masks, right. No passports, no cards, no vax cards, nothing. It's Ron DeSantis's free Florida we're in. But she comes from an oppressive place and from an oppressive party that wants to have the most restrictive restrictions on the American people that we have ever experienced. And, of course, they fly down to Miami to be free. Right? Got to come to Miami to be free and don't abide by any of the things that they're forcing the rest of the country and their communities and districts to go through. And here in Florida, there is a humongous Omicron outbreak. There just is. I mean, it is. That's the way it is. The number one reason we've had a massive outbreak here in Florida are because of New Yorkers like AOC and other tourists who have come to Florida during Christmas and New Year's, during the winter weather for the holidays. And they come from up north, they come from New York, they come from Pennsylvania, and they bring the Omicron. And they don't go by all the restrictions they have where they're from, and they make Floridians sick. It's really bad. It's like when you see those stories of an illegal immigrant who, like this happened recently in Florida. An illegal immigrant came over under Biden's open border policy and murdered a Floridian in Jacksonville, Florida, a couple months back. And these tourists that are coming to Florida with their COVID, and you see AOC, there's millions of tourists in the last couple of weeks have come to Florida, and that's why we've had this huge boom in Omicron. So Governor Ron DeSantis, the greatest governor ever, he had a press conference today, and he was asked about AOC coming to his state. And he responded, of course. Oh,
I can't wait to hear this.
As clever as always. This is our governor, the greatest governor ever, Ron DeSantis.
AOC was seen party maskless. Here in Florida, she's been critical of your policy, but then she comes to Florida and enjoys these states. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, look, I think if I had $1 for every lockdown politician who decided to escape to Florida over the last 2 years, I'd be a pretty doggone wealthy man, let me tell you. I mean, Congress people, mayors, governors, I mean, you name it. And it's interesting, though, the reception that, that some of these folks will get in Florida, because I think a lot of Floridians say, wait a minute, you're bashing us because we're not doing your draconian policies, and yet we're the first place you want to flee to basically to be able to enjoy life. And so I'm not surprised to see that continue to happen. I could tell you, there are probably about a half dozen governors who had restrictions on their people and then were spotted at various points in Florida. Some of it's been public, some of it's not been public, but people tell me these things, and so these things are spotted. And so that's just the reality that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and it goes on. That's pretty good. I mean, and one of them was Whitmer. Remember, Governor Whitmer came down to Florida.
Florida's the place to be.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing and hypocritical. And then AOC's response was everybody that calls her out wants to have sex with her.
Interesting. Yeah,
this.
She's really a warped. I don't know what makes her tick.
I call her Veruca Salt.
Yeah, she's really warped, completely self-involved, self-important, narcissistic.
Yes,
slightly
definitely.
sociopathic.
Oh yeah.
She, I don't know what kind of man would date her. Obviously, somebody who has not a manly very little testosterone in his body, because I guarantee you she leads him around on a very short leash and he does whatever she says.
You never hear him talk.
But people do love her. I don't get it, but there are people that absolutely love her. She has like a cult following. They absolutely love her. But she, like you said, she's a chipmunk and she's a hypocrite. And she was also at a drag bar where they were doing some outdoor drag show.
Maskless.
Hey, look, more power to her. I think everybody should be able to go out and do what they want. But where she is from, they can't. They have restrictions. They're only giving monoclonal to people of color now. It's a horrible place to be if you live in New York, especially if you're a white person. Get the hell out of there, because if you get sick, they're not going to give you medication.
Well, this
thing to Florida.
This thing with AOC, when she says that everyone that calls her out wants to sleep with her. Listen, I'm not saying that AOC is ugly.
She is ugly.
There's a different standard of beauty for politicians, like President Clinton.
I don't think she's pretty at all.
No, I don't think she's pretty. But if you look at the other members of Congress, there's a different standard when you're talking about. But she is not a sex symbol.
No.
And no matter what age you are, when you're growing up, there's always like a group that are considered the sex symbols. And I have never heard whoever the most popular celebrity woman was at the time. I don't know who it is now. I'm too old for that. But whether, you go back to
I don't know.
Marilyn Monroe through Pamela Anderson and whoever you want to name, I have never heard one of those women say, everybody wants to have sex with me. I've only heard AOC say that.
Yeah.
And
she's just stupid.
That is, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but that sounds like what you said, Kathy. That sounds like hardcore narcissist.
I would really love to see on Fox or Newsmax. Newsmax should bring in two types of people. They should bring in a lip reader. I've always said this, that they need to have a lip reader. I think I saw one once on Fox, because there's a lot of videos they have of people where you see them having conversations, but you don't hear. I would bring in a lip reader, somebody who analyzes body language, and also bring in a forensic psychologist that profiles people.
Yes.
And have them come in and profile certain politicians based on statements like
you would do
this.
Serial killers.
Exactly. Have somebody, they can bring in that Cindy lady that's with the short hair, the FBI profile that's on the ID all the time.
Yeah, FBI,
and have her analyze somebody like AOC.
And then after they have the lip reader tell us what they say, have Mark Dice read what they say.
Yes.
Yeah, do the
He's
voice.
The best.
And she is definitely a huge narcissist. And that's very dangerous, because she is not going anywhere. She's probably going to be in the Senate. The Democrats plan on running her for president one day.
There's more to her story, and I really would love to see one of these reporters on Newsmax really do an in-depth background story on her, because she just came out of nowhere. And her being a congresswoman and winning and all this, just some nobody bartender out of nowhere. There's more to the story, and I really would like to know.
I question the bartender story.
That's what I'm saying. There's something going on
I've always said I would like someone who interviews her to ask her how to make a complex drink that has multiple alcohols in it, and not like a beer, and not a place where I go to order beer or wine. I don't know if she's a bartender. Like I don't know if people drink these anymore, but when I was younger, we used to drink Long Island iced teas.
Oh yeah, those are good.
And those are probably out now, But Long Island iced teas, if I remember correctly, had 5 different types of alcohol in them, And it is something that's like that. Does she know how to make that? I bet you she does not. We'll never know.
Well, she doesn't even know how to use her garbage disposal. So
that's correct.
So I doubt that she knows how to make a Manhattan or a Long Island iced tea or a Cosmopolitan or anything.
Well, this is the deal, okay? This is why it upsets me with things about AOC, because she comes out of nowhere and then she's the it girl, I mean, Joe Rogan, we talk about he's like the most powerful, influential person in media right now, but we know where he came from. He was on, what was it, News Radio?
Yeah.
Which I never watched News Radio.
He really worked his way up. He was he was on Fear Factor. He did the Man Show. He did the Man Show on Comedy Central with Jimmy Kimmel.
I never watched that, but I remember it.
And then he went from that. Then he did that sitcom News Radio, or that might have been before.
News Radio, I think, was first.
Yeah, and that was with Phil Hartman. I never liked that show. I thought it was boring. And then he did also the Fear Factor, which we watched.
And then he did the MMA stuff. So I mean, we know every
history. Yeah.
We know every step that Joe Rogan took, and it's a very strange step to becoming like the political voice of record. But AOC, we don't know anything.
No. And somebody needs to do an in-depth.
And they hand the whole country over to her.
Newsmax just hired that reporter that used to be on Fox, the one that Obama investigated. What was his name? Rosen.
James Rosen.
James Rosen. James Rosen he is a great reporter. I know he got jammed up at Fox, but whatever. He's a great reporter. He needs to do an in-depth documentary style piece on her background, how she ended up being a congresswoman, like a real,
Sounds good to me. Now, Liz Cheney, we're at the beginning of I'm calling it a new liberal holiday, and it's called January 6th week. And this is the first year of something the Democrats plan on being an annual event.
Oh, yeah, they're going to commemorate it like 9/11.
Yeah, and even more so.
This will replace 9/11.
They are really laying it on thick. And I'm going to play a clip here of Liz Cheney, and I'm not going to play any others, just this one of Liz Cheney. And what they're trying to do, and the reason I'm playing this, I've been talking about this since right after this happened, what they were going to do with this, and Liz Cheney let the cat out of the bag. What they're attempting to do with the January 6th hearing is to stop President Trump from having the ability to run for president, and they're going to try to get some type of criminal charge against him. I don't mean a conviction, just a charge. And after this committee comes out with their conclusion, and their conclusion was reached before the committee was even formed, right? Kangaroo Committee. They're going to go to some Obama judge, Biden judge, some liberal judge, and get some type of criminal something against President Trump. And then they're going to go to different states, and they're going to get their governors to say, and their secretaries of state to say, well, Donald Trump cannot be on the ballot in this state because he has this criminal indictment over his head, and try to keep him off the ballot in the primary process.
That's definitely what they're going to do.
If that fails, okay, because he could still go on to get the nomination even if they keep him off the ballot in some states. Remember, the Democrats kept Lincoln off the ballot in all of the southern states in the 1860 election, and he still won, okay, in the Electoral College. Then they'll use it, if he still does well, they'll use it to try to manipulate the Electoral College or I'm sorry, not the Electoral College, the delegates at the convention. They'll try to use it to manipulate the Republican convention. They're using this to try to stop him from being able to run for president through all kinds of schemes. And Liz Cheney admitted it to us. Listen.
The committee has firsthand testimony now that he was sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office watching the attack on television.
Okay. Everyone watched it on television. Yeah. So now watching the Capitol breach on television makes you a party to it. Everyone watched it on television. Yeah. Everyone in the world watched it on television.
As the assault on the Capitol occurred. We know, as you know well, that the briefing room at the White House is just a mere few steps from the Oval Office. The president could have at any moment walked those very few steps into the briefing room, gone on live television, and told his supporters who were assaulting the Capitol to stop. He could have told them to stand down.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting thing. He could have gone and told his supporters inside to stop. Brian Stelter on his show had some reporters who were there at the Capitol breach. They said cell phone and internet was not working. It had been shut down. So there would have been no way, and there were no TVs in the
so I guess
So there would have been no way for Trump if he said, okay, I want to communicate with them because their cell phones and internet wasn't working. There's no reception inside.
Well, this tells me that they have nothing to go on, and now they're trying to jam him up on the idea that he didn't stop something.
Inaction is now action.
So I guess if you're walking down the street, it's like what happened in that last episode of Seinfeld. Of course, no, they were involved in that. Never mind. That's a bad example. Say you're walking down the street and a bank is getting robbed and you don't call the police and you just don't do anything. Did you commit a crime
you're
now?
You're a bank robber, yes.
You're committing According a crime by not reporting
yes.
or trying to stop something.
Yes.
And,
you're a bank robber
things
now.
were happening. This tells me they have nothing on this guy.
Let me
that
finish
this
up.
is what they're going with. It's going to go nowhere.
So here she goes. She's gonna let the cat out of the bag here.
Have told him to go home, and he failed to do so. It's hard to imagine a more significant, a more serious dereliction of duty than that.
Is his failure to make that statement criminal negligence?
I think that there are a number of, as the chairman said, potential criminal statutes at issue here. But I think that there's absolutely no question that it was a dereliction of duty. And I think one of the things the committee needs to look at as we're looking at a legislative purpose is whether we need enhanced penalties for that kind of dereliction of duty. But I think it's also important for the American people to understand how dangerous Donald Trump was. We know as he was sitting there in the dining room next to the Oval Office, members of his staff were pleading with him to go on television, to tell people to stop. We know Leader McCarthy.
There's no TVs in there.
But he did go on TV.
Members of his family.
He did.
We know
He did
his
not.
daughter.
He did go on TV.
Testimony that his daughter Ivanka went in at least twice to ask him to please stop this violence. Any man who would not do so, any man who would provoke a violent assault on the Capitol to stop the counting of electoral votes, any man who would watch television as police officers were being beaten, as his supporters were invading the Capitol of the United States, is clearly unfit for future office. Clearly can never.
Okay, unfit for future office. See, and so this is their whole thing, is to say he's got. And she talked about new legislation to go against him. And I'm not a lawyer. You have to talk to Mark Levin. I did not know that you could pass legislation to punish someone for something they've done in the past. You understand what I mean? You can't say, okay.
No, you can't.
Now we've passed a law. This is illegal. It applies to you 4 years ago. I've never heard of that before.
I don't think she's going to be successful in this. I think that she's going to lose her seat in November,
Let's hope.
And then there's nothing she can do. She has no power anymore. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. And the fact that they're now. And he did go on TV, by the way. It's not like he didn't go on television at all. He did go on TV. So I don't know what the hell she's talking about.
And they cut him
because
off.
he didn't go on TV the minute she thought he should have done it. Well, a lot of things were happening. Nobody expected this. And maybe he was just really trying to really think about, okay, what do I need to say here? What do I need to do here?
Kathy, on 9/11.
He did go on TV.
On 9/11, her father was watching the attack on CNN. Okay, and they didn't take action right away. At that level, there's a delay before they can act. They got to get information.
Well,
this is ridiculous.
And speaking of her father, here's a woman whose dad started a war
on a lie,
a war with another country based on a lie. They lied to everybody in the world. And how many men were killed or maimed? You see those commercials with the guys that don't have legs, that have to get them a special home, tunnel to towers. We donate to them. Their faces burned off because her dad lied, started a war. But she's worried because Donald Trump didn't go on TV at the time she said he would, even though he did go on TV around later that afternoon. But she's upset because he didn't go on TV. She's got a lot of damn nerve.
And her dad's lie led to ISIS and the civil war in
they disrupted
Syria,
the whole Middle East.
And it still continues till this day. All right, we're going to take our last break of the program. When we get back, there's a lot more to talk about. I'm Brian. Always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Back right after this.
There's no doubt, today more than ever, we all need a little uplifting. Times are scary, and the world can seem lonely and frightening, but God is always present. God loves us and wants us to know He is here and always there when we need Him. The Warriors for Christ podcast seeks to uplift, edify, and encourage you to be the light and salt in a dark and tasteless world. They have new episodes weekly. Be sure to subscribe and share the Warriors for Christ podcast with your friends and family. Find the Warriors for Christ podcast podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Player FM, Stitcher, Deezer, Amazon Podcast, and on their website, warriorsforchrist.podomatic.net. That's the number 4, warriorsforchrist.podomatic.net. Warriors for Christ, letting the Bible speak and teach for itself. Many times we hear that crises are opportunities, but to understand this, it's necessary to change the focus of how we see the context. This way, we can notice the ways that allow us to undertake what we think of as the new and what we want to manifest in our universe. The book from author Christian Franchini, Creativity in Times of Pandemic, available on Amazon, provides readers with 11 keys to develop your creative potential. Keys that you can implement in your daily life and discover a new universe of possibilities that will propel you towards the singularity of being. Since we can understand creativity as a key to a new state of consciousness that connects us with infinite alternatives, this requires reformulating the old patterns of information and beliefs to enhance the creative process in all its dimensions. This must-read book is a great gift for anyone who wants to manifest a new beginning in their life. Order your copy right now on Amazon. Creativity in Times of Pandemic, from author Christian Franchini. Have you ever dreamed of being wealthy using real estate? If you answered yes, there's a podcast you will want to add to your playlist. Big Fat Real Estate Checks, hosted by Marco Kozlowski. Available on all podcast platforms. It's a podcast about investing in U.S.-based multifamily real estate. If you want to replace your JOB income with passive income for life, host Marco Kozlowski's proprietary systems and processes can help you get there. And you don't necessarily need money or credit to do it. Marco has been in real estate for over 20 years and has learned lessons, horror stories, and an entertaining and fun way of teaching you how to win the game of cash flowing real estate without breaking the bank, without risk, and without using any of your credit. He has hundreds of successful students who used his systems and processes to replace their income and retire. Check it out today and learn from Marco. His podcast is filled with valuable information that you can actually use. You will learn how to build real, generational wealth. No get-rich schemes here. At Big Fat Real Estate Checks with host Marco Kozlowski to your playlist right now. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and welcome. Make sure that you follow and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to us on. And I want to thank our Patreon supporters for their support of the program. Thank you so much. You know, our Patreon supporters, your help does help a lot, and it's greatly appreciated. If you would like to support the show by becoming a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description of this episode and every episode. There's a direct link on my website, briancraigshow.com. There are perks to becoming a Patreon supporter, including commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. We have a private Marco Polo group where Kathy and I communicate with our Patreon supporters, and many more. And our top Patreon supporters, they get a live on-air thank you shout-out on each and every episode of the program. So the names you're about to hear are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, D, Jacqueline, Rich, Nick, and Rich. These are our Patreon top supporters. Thank you so much. And the direct website address for our Patreon page is patreon.com/realbriancraigshow.
Well, I have an update on Sarah.
Oh.
Our listener, longtime listener, Sarah, who has been in the hospital for over a month, probably 6 weeks, fighting COVID. And they put a trach in her, a tracheotomy vent tube in her throat.
They removed her from the ventilator.
Right. She's off the vent, but she does have a trach in her throat. They're going to transfer her to a long-term care facility within the week to do physical therapy. And they said the average number of days the patients stay there is 30 days, but it can be longer or shorter depending on her health. So she is moving out of the hospital this week into a long-term care facility so that's good. That means she's moving up to She's getting out of the ICU. She's moving to a different area where she can go through rehab, and so she's definitely going to make it.
That's good news.
On the road to recovery. So continue prayers for Sarah. And speaking of prayers, Brian and I saw a movie over the weekend, which was disappointing but interesting at the same time. We saw The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And I have to say the actors in that were fantastic.
Well, it's about Tammy Faye Baker.
Well,
and Jim Baker.
Is there any other Tammy Faye?
Yeah, for those
Tammy
who don't
Faye
remember.
and Jim Baker, who I've always been fascinated by. I remember watching them in the 80s on TV. And Jessica Chastain plays Tammy Faye, and Andrew Garfield plays Baker. And they are perfect casting. They had them down. They should get nominated for Academy Awards for this. But the movie really just told just the surface of what happened. It was very shallow. It didn't really show exactly what happened. It didn't get into the deep details of what happened. It just skipped around. It's like 1 minute they're with Pat Robertson at the 700 Club, and then the next thing you know, they're at Heritage USA with this huge following, and they really don't get into how it happened, what happened. So I actually got a book on them that's fascinating that I've been reading the last few days. But it was interesting. And to talk about a fall from grace, if you guys remember, Jim Baker, apparently you don't get this from the movie, this is from the book I read, that he was extremely ambitious and loved attention, was absolutely obsessed with popularity and getting attention because he never got it as a kid. And he really did not grow up super religious at all. And he started this network, and he was very good at raising money. The PTL Club, very good at raising money. And apparently he was just spending money. Like they haven't gotten into the details of the laws he broke, but apparently he just spent money like crazy. And Tammy Faye really did not know what was going on, because in those Pentecostal marriages, which is what it was, the man is in charge. The woman is subservient and does not ask questions. And the man does what he wants. The man handles the money. She was given an allowance. And Tammy Faye was a true believer. She was really grew up Pentecostal, and she was the real deal. But Jim, I'm not so sure about. But he embezzled or spent $92 million of the PTL money for things that he wasn't supposed to.
And that's like at $1985. I wonder what that would be today.
That's why he went to jail. 24 counts of he went to white collar crime jail, but he got out. He has his own ministry now with a new wife.
He's been out for many years.
And they both remarried. They got divorced when he was in jail. And but it's an interesting movie, but it really just scratches the surface.
And then we watched this movie, which is not, like Kathy says, it's not very good. It's the acting's good in it, but it's poorly written. But let's see if the PTL Club is on YouTube. And sure enough, YouTube is filled with the PTL Club. And we watched 3 episodes. Yeah, last night we watched a couple episodes, and one of them was with Gavin MacLeod and his wife, who was Captain Stubing on the Love Boat, and it was from 1985. And I got to tell, I remember the PTL Club and Jim Baker and Tammy Faye, and I remember it being on TV all the time. But I was a kid; I didn't pay much attention to it. And
they used to make fun of her a lot.
Yeah, she doesn't look when I watch those PTL Clubs. She doesn't look as old as I remember her, because she's in
her 40s now. She looks young.
Yeah, she's like younger than us probably now.
Oh yeah.
But it was a very, very good show, and I was blown away.
It was good.
And those of you out there that are Christians, you should pull up this Gavin MacLeod episode, Captain Stubing from the Love Boat on the PTL Club. It was insane. Let me just talk to you about this, guys, because this is how much the world has changed. This episode, we looked it up online, was from 1985, which was at the peak of the Love Boat.
Yeah.
So Gavin MacLeod was on the #1 show.
It's like their 6th season, 5th or 6th season.
Yeah, he was on the #1 show on network television. And he came out with Jim Baker and Tammy Faye, and he was crying that he was on this show. He was a recent born again Christian, and his wife, who's an actress who was in a couple episodes of The Love Boat, was there. And he and his wife had gotten divorced 4 years before this, during The Love Boat, because he had met a young woman, and they had just gotten back together and remarried, and he just had become a Christian. And they were on the PTL Club with Jim Baker and Tammy Faye talking. I mean, I couldn't believe how the wife with Gavin MacLeod, she says she just got a letter that he was divorcing her. He never talked to her. And that was it.
Let me tell you,
how she was watching the tabloids at the grocery store with him with his young chickie, she said. And Gavin MacLeod is there, and they're talking about this affair he had and how Jesus saved them and everything else. And Gavin MacLeod's wife said something that if this were today would destroy now you got to understand, this was 1985, The Love Boat, #1 show on television, and Gavin MacLeod was the star of it. And she was brought to Christ by Pat Boone's wife, and they had a group of Hollywood women who were married to famous people who had left them, and that's who brought her to Christ. And she said she got into the PTL club. She was watching it on television, and they did a healing on the PTL club of a man who was homosexual, she said. This was Gavin MacLeod's wife.
Yeah.
And they healed him on the PTL club of his homosexuality.
That was a big thing in the 80s.
Yeah,
that was a big thing in the 80s.
He became straight. I don't know. And Gavin MacLeod's just not
sure it didn't
along.
take.
I know. I'd like to do a follow-up.
I'm sure it didn't take.
I'd like to do a follow-up on that guy. But if that were today with the Twitter thing, everything else, Gavin MacLeod would have been fired before he left Heritage USA property.
Yeah.
And it's a really strange thing, but I'll tell you this, okay? Now I could be very wrong. We watched 3 episodes of the PTL Club on YouTube, and I subscribe to the PTL channel. I'll probably watch more episodes of the Tammy
like
Faye.
them.
Let me tell you.
It's a good show.
Okay. As much scandal as was involved in Jim Bakker and Tammy Faye and that whole thing and the financial scandal and the sex scandal with Jim Bakker. And she had an affair too, by the way. And when she, this blew my mind. Tammy Faye had an affair with a musician that worked for them at the PTL club.
A very brief.
Yeah.
It was like one time.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It wasn't like him with Jessica Hahn.
And what Jim Bakker made Tammy Faye do, I've never heard this before, is insane. Tell him what happened, Kathy.
He had her go on the show and talk about it and
live
and
on
ask
the PTL
for forgiveness, kind of like what Jimmy Swaggart did. Let me tell you,
she went out on stage with Jim Bakker on live TV. Tammy Faye, he made her do this and say that she had an affair with this man, and they raised tens of millions of dollars.
Oh yeah, he knew how to raise money. But this show is really good because
it is good.
And I never watched it as a kid or growing up because I just thought
I watched it from time to time.
I wasn't into evangelists. But we watched 3 episodes, and we watched one with Mickey Rooney, he was an awful interview.
And one with Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, that was good. But this show they had with the 2 of them where they had guests on, they would like sit on a couch and bring guests in, and it was a lot of fun. They would sit there and talk, and they really laid everything out. There was no script. He never worked scripted ever, and everything was recorded live but taped for the next day or whatever. But everything they talked about was raw. It was real. They laid it all on the table. They talked about very intimate things.
Yeah,
they really were talked about very taboo things. And she even had gay people on her show. She went against the movement of conversion and had gay people on her show that she would interview saying that God loves you. It doesn't matter if you're gay or not. You're born that way. God doesn't make mistakes. So the gays loved her. And she did that talk show with Jim J. Bullock, which I never really saw either.
Here's the thing, okay? Okay, all the scandals involved with Jim Bakker and Tammy Faye, and there were certainly a lot of them, okay? Here's the thing you got to consider, okay? And those were bad things, right? The crimes and the affairs and all that. I'm not, They brought, and I know they were raising a lot of money and people, they brought more people to Jesus than most other people ever have.
Probably.
I mean, and it was
worldwide.
Yeah. And what it was like with, I watched the interview. I didn't watch too much of the Mickey Rooney one, but I watched.
Yeah, that was hard to watch. He's just really tough to interview.
The entire Gavin MacLeod interview, you guys should watch. That's amazing. And then the one with Colonel Sanders was interesting too. And what really they were about, both of these interviews, Colonel Sanders and Gavin MacLeod, is what brought them to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it was and Colonel Sanders had talked about how he had a health issue, and he was in the hospital, and he had, and a lot of people who thought themselves as Christians and everything else, but they really weren't. And then they were, and these are amazing stories. And it's something.
Well, he wanted to do like a talk show in the 70s, like the Tonight Show.
That's what it was like.
And he started that with Pat Robertson, do the 700 Club show, and he started doing a Tonight Show type show but it was Christian based. And then it led to when he did Heritage USA, the PTL Club, where they had a couch where people would come and they would talk like that.
I'll just say a couple things about this. I know a lot of people might be thinking like Joel Osteen, Jim Baker. I believe that the PTL Club, even though they had these scandals, were a legitimate Christian organization that brought millions of people to Jesus.
I agree.
Joel Osteen, I think, is a fake.
He's a big phony.
He's a fake.
Jamie and Tammy Faye, to me, I think the money, his ambition and his need for popularity and adoration overtook him and got the best of him. But when they took him out, I remember, and put him to jail, he was bawling.
Oh, yeah,
that was a man that was broken, and he was really sorry. I got the feeling from the movie and from watching their shows that they were definitely sincere and the real deal.
Yeah.
He just allowed the money and the fame to get away with him a little bit.
That happens.
Yeah, we're all human.
That's why we got to hope that doesn't happen to Joe Rogan. We don't want this super fame. That happened to Glenn Beck. We don't want it to happen to Joe Rogan. Hey, listen, guys, we're out of time. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll talk to you next time.
From author Lyndon N. Smith comes a book that is popular science with a twist. It's both entertaining and educational. Why You Can't Catch a Rocket to Mars. Some personal reflections on science and society. Available on Amazon. If you are a lover of science and technology, this richly illustrated book is for you. No matter what age and what level of understanding of physics you have. Have you ever wondered why you can't catch a rocket to Mars, Jupiter, or Pluto, or even the nearest star? When you read Why You Can't Catch a Rocket to Mars, you will learn about what has been holding back science and technology for many years and what we can do about it. You will obtain a fascinating glimpse into a wide range of fantastic future possibilities that include artificial intelligence, androids, invisibility, nanotechnology, space elevators, interstellar travel, and more. The author encourages readers to reach for the stars and to realize a new golden age for humanity. You will understand why we need to spend more time and effort on looking to the fantastic possibilities of the future. And you will never view Sherlock Holmes or Star Trek in the same way again. Why You Can't Catch a Rocket to Mars. Some personal reflections on science and society from author Lyndon N. Smith. Available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and audiobook. Order your copy right now.